We are in the Book of Giants, chapter 84, I believe. Yeah, 84. If I can find it. 84. There we go. If you're watching this later, we have a Discord. And there's a link to the Discord pinned in the live chat. There's a link to the Discord in the description of the video. We do a number of live streams every week. Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Most weeks. Miss some sometimes because life happens and whatnot. But every Thursday is something non-canonical. Every Saturday is also something non-canonical. Thursday right now, today, and for the foreseeable future, we're reading the Book of Enoch with the Book of Giants, as fragmented as it is, kind of meshed in there at the same time. Saturday, we're in the Gospel of Judas. Right now, we should finish the second half of it. Not this Saturday, because we have family coming into town, but next Saturday, we'll finish it. Then Sunday is the Book of Job right now, and Tuesday is moving to Monday for the foreseeable future, so from here forward. And every Monday is a live topic discussion that is usually voted upon by a poll in the Discord. So we post a poll, everybody votes on the poll, whatever wins the poll is what we talk about. And I prepare a little rudimentary slides and whatnot, and then rely on everybody else to bring the conversation. But it's fun stuff. 2 different YouTube channels. At Tattoo Theist is every Monday, and at Live Bible Study, this one is Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the Book of Enoch / the Book of Giants this evening. David says, good evening, fam. The wildcat and dog are asleep beside me. I'm sipping on a huge glass of iced tea. I'm ready to enjoy being with all of you and to learn. Love you all, David. I'll let you go first. What? David messaged me and told me I could be the first comment today. Y'all, everyone give David a cookie. You should make cookies, actually. That's a great idea. I'm glad this was brought up. You should make cookies. That would be fantastic, actually. I will open the Discord voice before Tampa yells at me, because she is the one who, thank God, always holds me accountable. Because I forget. Because I suck. It is what it is. It is what it is. We love me through it. Thank God. We'll wait a few minutes. I started a little bit early. Yeah, the most interesting thing is I never look at like Christian news other than right now. Like the first couple of minutes before the stream, I'll pop it open and take a quick gander. And it's just the same stuff every single time for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's just the same stuff. On X the other day, which I've been totally off of social media for a while now because we got a bunch of stuff that we're starting and trying to get moving. But I did get on X last night for a few minutes in bed, and I saw that yet another pastor has fallen because they slept with somebody who is not their wife. It just doesn't end. These guys, like, at some point, if that's you, if you're a prominent pastor who just can't seem to only sleep with your wife, when you see every day, pretty much, another pastor is getting caught doing this, like, maybe stop. Maybe don't do it. Because if you're famous, you're probably going to get told on. And you're probably going to become a public spectacle. But that's just me. Greetings, my fellow heretics. Okay, if we have everything we need for chocolate chip cookies, then I don't know why there aren't chocolate chip cookies. Mikkel. Hey ho, let's go. Good evening, fellas. We should mail David cookies. We used to whisper heretic in my church, and now I shout it. Y'all have changed me. That's a fantastic comment. That's a savor for later comment. Okay, so real fast, just quick reminder. And if you didn't see it, surprise. Tuesdays are now going to be, and I'm going to do it right now while we talk, so I don't forget. Every Tuesday now is actually going to be Monday. And this will be indefinitely. The time does not change. It'll still be 7 p.m. Central Time, but no more Tuesdays. It'll be every Monday. I posted a poll and it was 100% of everybody saying that was okay. So I hope that's accurate. But Tuesdays are going to become very difficult for us. So it'll be Monday now. So this coming Monday, we will do the old thesis stuff. Nothing else changes. As of now, when the baby comes, God knows what's going to happen. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. This is chapter 84 in the book of the Gigantics. And I lifted up my hands in righteousness and blessed the Holy and Great One, and spoke with the breath of my mouth and with the tongue of flesh, which God has made for the children of the flesh of men, that they should speak therewith. And he gave them breath and a tongue and a mouth, that they should speak therewith. Blessed be you, O Lord King, great and mighty in your greatness, Lord of the whole creation of heaven, King of kings and God of the whole world. A bit redundant, but I get it. And your power and kingship and greatness abide forever and ever, and throughout all generations, your dominion and all heavens are your throne forever. And the whole earth your footstool forever and ever. For you have made and you rule all things, and nothing is too hard for you. Wisdom never departs from the place of your throne, nor turns away from your presence. You know and see and hear everything, and there is nothing hidden from you, for you see everything. And now the angels of your heavens are guilty of trespass, and on the flesh of men abide your wrath until the great day of judgment. And now, O God, the Lord and great King, I implore you, I love this word. I implore and beseech you, I beseech you to fulfill my prayer. I don't know why, but I always get a kick out of the word beseech. To leave me a posterity on earth, and not destroy all the flesh of man, and make the earth without inhabitant, so that there should be an eternal destruction. And now, my Lord, destroy from the earth the flesh which has aroused your wrath, but the flesh of righteousness and uprightness establish an eternal plant bearing seed forever. And hide not your face from the prayer of your servant, O Lord. And then we have an author's note here, which says, in chapter 85 and following, a series of animals is mentioned. These seem to refer to nations or ethnicities. For example, the eagles may refer to the Roman Empire. The Islamic nation is represented by the asses. I'm just reading. Egyptians are wolves, Assyrians are lions, and so on. See Daniel chapter 10 for other like imagery. I'm pretty sure everybody here is familiar with that. Other writers have attempted to be more specific. Starting with Adam and Eve, the story begins. Abraham may be a white bull, Ishmael, the wild ass, Isaac, the white bull, two white bulls, baby girl. Abraham is the white bull and Isaac is the white bull. I guess that makes sense. Jacob is a white sheep, Esau, the wild boar. There is the concept that Noah's three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, give rise to all various... Is that a typo? Give rise to all various the animals or nations. I swear to God, these are like scholarly texts, and they don't proofread them. The sons of Noah give rise to all various the animals or nations. We get it, but come on, be better. The small lambs with open eyes are the essences. Jesus is the sheep with the big horn, and in 90:17, the final 12 shepherds represent the Christian era and the 12 apostles. That's interesting. Notes are included within the chapters, and at the end of this section, they suggest possible interpretations. As with any prophecy written in such imagery, it is impossible to know exactly what the author was trying to convey. Prophecy tends to be interpreted according to one's viewpoint. You don't say. When one looks at the prophecies from a purely Jewish viewpoint, it is likely that the savior of the people, represented by the sheep with a large horn, is not the Messiah at all, but a historical military figure such as Judas Maccabeus, who led the great Maccabean revolt in 167 BC to 160 BC against Rome. Judas Maccabeus, or Maccabeus, hey, it's Heidi. Hey, Heidi. Is also described as a great horn among six others on the head of the lamb. This possibly pertains to his 5 brothers and Matthias. If you take this in context of the history of from Maccabeus, time, I'm gonna restart. If you take this in context of the history from Maccabeus time, the explanation of the verses may be found in 1 Maccabees 3:7 and 6:52, 2 Maccabees 6:8-14, and 1 Maccabees 7:41 and 42. We're going to read Maccabees soon, both, because they are really interesting. It's Heidi. It's good to see you, Heidi. I hope you've been well. I also love the Book of Giants. What we have of it, at least, has been very interesting. I have been a big fan. This is chapter 85. And after this, I saw another dream, and I will show the whole dream to you, my son. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. I just want to be sure we're good. Beautiful. Verse 2. And Enoch lifted up his voice and spoke to his son, Methuselah. I will speak to you, my son, hear my words. Incline your ear to the dream or vision of your father. Before I married or took your mother Edna, I saw in a vision on my bed, and behold, a bull came out from the earth, and that bull was white. There you go. First reference of what the author was talking about. And after it came out a heifer, and along with this later came out 2 bulls, one of them black and the other red. And that black bull gored the red one and pursued him over the earth. And then I could no longer see that red bull, but that black bull grew, and that heifer went with him. And I saw that many oxen proceeded from him, which resembled and followed him. And that cow, that first one, went from the presence of that first bull in order to seek that red one, but found him not, and mourned with a great lamentation, and sought him. And I looked until that first bull came to her, and quieted or calmed her. And from that time onward, she cried no more, no mas. And after that, she bore another white bull. And after him, she bore many, many bulls and black cows. And I saw in my sleep that white bull likewise grew and became a great white bull. And from him proceeded many white bulls, and they resembled him. And they began to father many white bulls, which resembled them, one following another. And then we have another author's note, which says, many believe verse 1-9 represent the story of Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. The first white bull mentioned is Adam, the heifer is Eve. The 2 bulls born to them are a black one, Cain, and a red one, Abel. Eve leaves to seek Abel and finds him. She laments his death. Adam comforts her. Cain goes on to proceed to produce many oxen. Eve produces another son, and thus produces many more bulls and cows. Interesting. That's interesting. I mean, it lines up. It makes sense. But I think you could make other things also make sense. But that is interesting. So that was verses 1-9 in chapter 85, if anybody cares. But these parallels to the animal imagery, this first section is meant to parallel Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. The first white bull mentioned being Adam, the heifer is Eve. The 2 bulls born to them are a black one, Cain, and a red one, Abel. Eve then leaves to seek Abel and finds him, lamenting the death. It fits. I get it. Adam comforts her. Cain goes on to produce many oxen. Eve produces another son and thus produces many more bulls and cows. I get it. I think it's a fair theory. Makes sense to me. Hey, Ghost, you are late, brother. You are late. I was a little bit worried. It's like if David's not here, if Tampa's not here, and if Ghost are not here, something is terribly wrong. Something awful happened. We have to start calling family, of which we don't know anyone. So it'd be quite the task to try to check on any of you. Chapter 86. What? I'm so uncultured. What does... I don't want to ask the question before I think about it for a second, because I want to try to not sound stupid. So we're going to give this a shot. I don't know. What does GTSY mean? Can someone learn me? It's going to be... I'm going to be so mad. What does that mean? Y'all make me feel so dumb. I swear to God. This is the greatest pride check continually 4 times a week than I've ever had in my life. Chapter 86. And again, I looked with my eyes as I slept, and I saw the heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven, and it arose and ate and pastured among those oxen. Actually, Tampa, I forgot to bring you in. So I'm going to bring you in. Just make sure you're muted unless you want to cut me off. Good to see you. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. I'm so uncultured. It's insanely embarrassing. I've never used that though. To be fair,
it's fine because you just learned it, so it won't be embarrassing ever again.
But I'm not like an old guy, you know. I'm a strapping young gentleman, and I'm just so out of touch with all that stuff. But I learned something. So as long as I retain it, I can not look stupid again. It's 50-50. We'll see. Hey, Ruth.
You can't be talking in the background.
Someone's unmuted. Ghost said I was trying to think of wrong answers, but I'm tired. Fair enough. You would normally have something quite clever. We'll give you a break. Goat that sails yearly. That's very innovative. I like that. I'm sure there are good ones. And I would have believed whatever somebody said. So I would have believed it. I love your lives because, lives like live stream. Bro, I'm dull. I love your lives because you read scripture very good. Well, we appreciate it. I just sit here and read. It's the everybody else that actually makes it interesting, and I genuinely believe that. How boring would it be if I just literally read for an hour? Pirate goats, ha 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 ha. Sails, babe, sails like on a boat. Did I say something? What did I say? Goats that sail yearly. Didn't I say that? God, what did I say? All right, 86. And again, I looked with my eyes as I slept and saw the heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven, and it arose and ate and pastured among those oxen or bulls. After that, I saw the large and the black oxen or bulls, and behold, they all changed their stalls and pastures and their heifers or cattle, and began to live with each other. And then there's an author's note here too. It says, the first star to fall was Satan. The falling stars that followed were the watchers. They caused the heifers, who are the women, to begin living with and having relations with angels, because on the previous verses, it would appear that Satan and the fallen angels picked the descendants and Cain to have adult relations. Second book of Adam and Eve, chapter 20, which we've read, if you remember, which is a shot in the dark, because quite a lot happened in those texts that was pretty wild. But in the second book of Adam and Eve, I believe it was only four parts for us. It was short. It was the short one. In chapter 20, Enoch was already grown up at that time. And in his zeal for God, he stood and said, hear me, you large and small, young and old, sons of Seth. When you transgress the commandment of our father and go down from this holy mountain, you shall not come up here again forever. I actually remember this because this was weird. The second book was weird. We had the Dead Dad Brigade. If anybody else remembers that, it's become kind of an inside joke with me and my kid, because she heard me say it whenever we did that stream, and she asked me about it, and now she kind of brings it up randomly. But it was the Dead Dad Brigade, where they were all there in the cave. It was really weird. It was very odd. Okay. But they rose up against Enoch and would not listen to his words. But they went down from the holy mountain, and when they looked at the daughters of Cain, at their beautiful figures, and at their hands and feet dyed with color, and the tattoos on their faces that adorn the what? Oh, that ornamented them. The fire of sin was set ablaze in them. Lust, y'all. Then Satan made them look most beautiful before the sons of Seth, as he also made the sons of Seth appear the most handsome in the eyes of the daughters of Cain, so that the daughters of Cain lusted after the sons of Seth like ravenous beasts. And the sons of Seth lusted after the daughters of Cain until they committed disgusting and disgraceful acts with them. Ghost says he remembers the Dead Dad Brigade. I'm glad somebody does. That makes me happy. back in Enoch now. And again, I saw in the vision and looked towards heaven, and behold, I saw many stars descend and cast themselves down from heaven to that first star, and they became bulls among those cattle and pastured with them. And I looked at them and saw they all let out their private their private parts, I guess is what I'm going to say. They all let out their private stuff like horses and began to mount the cows of the bulls or oxen. And they all became pregnant and bore elephants, camels, and asses. Okay. Author's note there too. Glad to hear it. Book of Jubilees indicates that the offspring of the angels of women were somehow different, and they are divided into categories of the Nephilim or Nephilim, depending on the translation. I'm sorry, the transliteration. The giants and the Elhil, Nephil are mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. They've got too much bracketed stuff going on here. They're divided into categories of the Nephilim or the Nephilim, depending on the transliteration. The giants and the Elhil, Nephil are mentioned, but this is the singular of Nephilim. Nephil. The word Nephil means the fallen. There is no indication as to the meaning of Elhil, but the word would indicate these are godlings and are likely those referred to in the book of Genesis as men of renown. That makes sense to me. Back in Enoch now, verse 5. And all the bulls or oxen feared them and were frightened of them and began to bite with their teeth and to devour and to gore with their horns. And moreover, they began to devour those oxen. And behold, all the children of the earth began to tremble and shake before them and to flee from them. Chapter 87. And again, I saw how they began to gore each other and to devour each other. And the earth began to cry aloud. And I raised my eyes again to heaven, and I saw in the vision, and behold, there came out from heaven beings who were like white men, and 4 went out from that place, and 3 others with them. And those 3 that had come out last grasped me by my hand and took me up, away from the generations of the earth, and raised me up to a high place, and showed me a tower raised high above the earth. And all the hills were lower. And one said to me, remain here until you see everything that befalls those elephants, camels, and asses, and the stars of the oxen, and all of them. 88. And I saw one of those 4 who had come out first. And he seized that first star which had fallen from heaven, and bound it hand and foot, and cast it into the abyss. Now that abyss was narrow and deep, and horrible and dark. 2 Peter 2:4 says, for if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. Back to Enoch. And one of them drew a sword, and gave it to those elephants and camels and asses. Then they began to smite each other, and the whole earth shook because of them. And as I was beholding in the vision, one of those 4 who had come out stoned them from heaven, and gathered and took all the great stars, whose private parts were like those of horses, and bound them all hand and foot, and threw them in an abyss of the earth. There's another author's note, which says, one must smile at the idea of angels having private parts the size of horses. Must they? Must one smile? In the ancient mind, this was one reason some of the women gave in so easily. If a spiritual creature is determined to become corporeal, why not create a body that will fulfill the lust that drives one to incarnate in the first place? What is happening? The author just told on himself. This is getting a bit interesting. This is now chapter 89. Good God. David, I am with you. I am with you. An uncomfortable smile, perhaps. But that's about it. 89. And one of those 4 went to that white bull and instructed him in secret. I'm not going to read it, but I'll put Tampa on the screen. And one of those four went to the white bull and instructed him in secret. And he was terrified. He was born a bull and became a man, and built for himself a great vessel and dwelt on it. Oh, okay. I just misread something. I'm glad I figured that out. And their bulls dwelt with him in the vessel, and they were covered over. And again, I raised my eyes toward heaven and saw a high roof with 7 water torrents on it. And those torrents flowed with much water into an enclosure. And I looked again, and behold, fountains were open on the surface of that great enclosure. And the water began to bubble and swell and rise on the surface. And I saw that enclosure until all its surface was covered with water. And the water, the darkness, and the mist increased on it. And as I looked at the height of that water, the water had risen above the height of the enclosure. And was streaming over the enclosure, and it stood on the earth. And all the cattle of the enclosure were gathered together until I saw how they sank and were swallowed up and perished in that water. Interesting image. But that vessel floated on the water, while all the oxen or bulls and elephants and camels and asses sank to the bottom with all the animals, so that I could no longer see them, and they were not able to escape, but perished and sank into the depths. And again I watched in the vision until those water torrents were removed from that high roof, and the chasms of the earth were leveled up, and other abysses were open. Then the water began to run down into these abysses, until the earth became visible. But that vessel settled on the earth, and the darkness retired, and the light appeared. But that white bull, which had become a man, came out of the vessel, and the 3 bulls with him. One of those 3 was white, like that bull, and one of them was red as blood, and one black. And that white bull departed from them. Author's note here says, here we have the story of Noah and the flood. The flood came because of the sins of the watchers and their offspring, who began killing everything. The flood cleansed the earth and left only the sons of Noah and their wives to repopulate. The story seems to indicate that the various races of the world, white, red, and black, began with the sons of Noah. Interesting. Back in Enoch now, verse 9. And they began to bring out breasts of the field and birds, so that there arose different genera. Hold on. Okay, good to go. Lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. And among them was born a white bull. Interesting. Ghost said, in alchemy, white, red, and black represent the great work. The great work. What is this? I'm not familiar. You don't have to come on. I'll pull it up just to be clear. Okay. So magnum opus. Okay. The great work, magnum opus in alchemy, refers to the process of spiritual and material transformation, often symbolized by the creation of the philosopher's stone. Interesting. Which was believed to have the power to turn base metal into gold and grant immortality. However, beyond its literal meaning, the great work also represents a deeper spiritual journey and an allegory for personal enlightenment and purification. And then it's got blackening, whitening, yellowing, and reddening. Interesting. The great work has been interpreted in various ways, from literal chemical experiments to mystical self-transformation. Many Christian and Hermetic alchemists saw it as a metaphor for salvation, comparing it to Christ's death and resurrection. Interesting. So I wonder, we have the white, we have the red, we have the black. They're missing the yellowing, at least from what I found. It says the 4 stages of the great work. 3 out of 4, though. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know nearly enough to be able to make heads or tails of that at all, but it's interesting. Ghost said rabbit hole, but the author may be tying it in. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I guess pay attention, because if anything else happens, it'll stand out to you and I will blow right past it. Interesting, though. Okay, so we got all the animals: tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boar, fox, squirrel, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, and eagles. Oh, and ravens. And they began to bite one another. But that white bull, which was born among them, fathered a wild ass, and a white bull with it, and the wild asses multiplied. No comment. I want to make... No. Not on this channel, at least. But that bull, which was born from him, fathered a black wild boar and a white sheep. And the former fathered many boars. But the sheep gave birth to 12 sheep. There's an author's note here. It says, Abraham fathered Ishmael, the wild ass, and Isaac, the white bull. Isaac fathers a boar, Esau, and a sheep, Jacob. Jacob has 12 sheep, who are the 12 patriarchs, and the beginning of the 12 tribes. Yeah, I mean, this all does tie together pretty beautifully, if you're being honest. Back in Enoch, verse 12. And when those 12 sheep had grown, they gave up one of them to the asses. And the asses again gave up that sheep to the wolves. And that sheep grew up among the wolves. There's an author's note, which says Joseph was sold to the Midianites or the Ishmaelites as a slave. Oh, I didn't even catch that. That is what they're talking about, isn't it? Okay. And then they, in turn, sold him to the Egyptians, and then they give the verse, Genesis 37, 25 to 29, 2. Interesting. So when the 12 sheep had grown, they gave up one of them, Joseph, to the asses, the Midianites. And the asses again gave up that sheep to the wolves, the Egyptians. And that sheep grew up among the wolves, or the Egyptians. Interesting. This is very interesting. 13. And the Lord brought the 11 sheep to live with it and to pasture with it among the wolves, and they multiplied and became many flocks of sheep. There is an author's note, which says, this begins the story of Moses and how the Egyptians oppressed the Israelites until he led them out of captivity. And the wolves began to fear them, and they oppressed them until they destroyed their little ones. And they threw their young into a deep river, but those sheep began to cry aloud on account of their little ones and to complain to their Lord. And a sheep which had been saved from the wolves fled and escaped to the wild asses. And I saw the sheep, how they lamented and cried and besought their Lord with all their might, until that Lord of the sheep descended at the voice of the sheep from a high abode, and came to them and pastured them. And he called that sheep which had escaped the wolves. What? And he called that sheep which had escaped the wolves, and spoke with it concerning the wolves, that it should admonish them not to touch the sheep. And the sheep went to the wolves according to the word of the Lord, and another sheep met it and went with it. And the two went and entered together into the assembly of those wolves, and spoke with them and admonished them not to touch the sheep from then on. Heidi said in the book of Enoch, the fallen angels mixed with the DNA. True. Giants are the Nephilim, she says. Agree. Okay, so we read that. 18. And on it I saw the wolves, and how they more harshly oppressed the sheep with all their power, and the sheep cried aloud. And the Lord came to the sheep, and they began to beat those wolves. And the wolves began to make lamentations. But the sheep became quiet and ceased to cry out. And I saw the sheep until they departed from among the wolves, but the eyes of the wolves were blinded. And the wolves departed in pursuit of the sheep with all their power. And the Lord of the sheep went with them as their leader, and all his sheep followed him. And his face was dazzling and glorious and terrible to behold. But the wolves began to pursue those sheep until they reached a sea of water. And that sea was divided, and the water stood on this side and on that before their face. And their Lord led them and placed himself between them and the wolves. And as those wolves had not yet seen the sheep, they proceeded into the midst of that sea, and the wolves followed the sheep. And those wolves ran after them into that sea. And when they saw the Lord of the sheep, they turned to flee before his face. But that sea gathered itself together and became as it had been created. And the water swelled and rose until it covered the wolves. Exodus, yes. And I watched until all the wolves who had pursued the sheep perished and were drowned. But the sheep escaped from that water and went out into the wilderness, where there was no water and no grass. And they began to open their eyes and to see. And I saw the Lord of the sheep pasturing them and giving them water and grass, and that sheep going and leading them. We have an author's note. Pontoon McGore. These weren't science books, and interpreting them as such is pointless. That said, no one has figured it out, so give it a go. And none of this will change the fact that the asses always give it up. I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody is interpreting really anything. Some theorizing is happening, but we are mostly just reading, my friend. Very pessimistic comment, though, I will say. It's very pessimistic. I'm the pessimist here. I am the cynic. I will say how hopeless and useless this all is. Don't one-up me on the pessimism. Don't like it. Don't like it. Because I totally agree. Yeah, I see it as basically pointless. I do not disagree with you, sir. There is an author's note here that says the Israelites escaped. Gee whiz. They passed through the divided sea, but the Egyptians were covered by the water and drowned. Now we begin the story of Moses and the ascent up the mountain where God gave him the 10 commandments. 29, back in Enoch. And the sheep ascended to the summit of that high rock, and the Lord of the sheep sent it to them. And after that I saw the Lord of the sheep who stood before them, and his appearance was great and terrible and majestic. And all those sheep saw him and were afraid before his face. And they all feared and trembled because of him, and they cried to that sheep which was among them, we are not able to stand before our Lord, or to behold him. And that sheep which led them again ascended to the summit of that rock, but the sheep began to be blinded, and to wander from the way which he had showed them. But that sheep did not realize it. There is another author's note, which says, when Moses came down from the mountain, he discovered a large group of the Israelites had made a golden calf idol, and were worshiping it. Horoscope is about this animal. Which animal? Go said they're just patterns in response to the earlier comment, Pontoon. These patterns can be applied to everything in life. It's all fractal, baby. Ghost also said, nobody, at least I hope, believe literal sheep were running from literal wolves regarding the story. Yes. Oh, Heidi, you just mean in general? Like the horoscope is based on the animals? We talked about this recently. Eventually soon we'll do astrology because it's something I just don't know about. But I watched or listened or read, or I don't know because it was so long ago, but a compelling presentation tying Christianity to astrology, and not that astrology means anything at all, but just that there was influence there. I don't remember any of the details, but I remember that it was compelling. I was compelled. That's all that I remember. So eventually we'll do astrology because it'd be interesting to see. Astrotheology is an interesting deep dive. Yeah, see, I just remember that it was really interesting. I remember that I've always been an astrology hater and cynic, like I am with most things, but whatever it was, it's been so long. I just remember the feeling. I was like, dang, that was compelling. That was really interesting. The connections that they were making. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So Revelation 12 is astrotheology. I'll have to look at it. Yeah, I need to get a base understanding first, but then I'd certainly look through a lot of that. I think it's interesting. Heidi said, yes, I agree, but not the same. Horoscope is of the fallen twisted stuff, but astrology is different. Right. That much I do know, that there is a difference. We talked a little bit about that last week or whatever it is, when we had a very brief conversation about some of this stuff. All right, 32. And the Lord of the sheep was very angry with them, and that sheep discovered it, and went down from the summit of the rock, and came to the sheep, and found the greatest part of them blinded and fallen away. And when they saw it, they feared and trembled at its presence, and desired to return to their folds. And that sheep took another sheep with it, and came to those sheep which had fallen away, and began to slay them. And the sheep feared its presence, and thus that sheep brought back those sheep that had fallen away, and they returned to their folds. Pontoon said, no, not pointless, not pessimistic. Nothing is wasted. All efforts yield fruit. Dr. Heiser has great lectures on this stuff from a linguistics perspective. I'm just trying to have a laugh. Fair enough. Yeah, I know Ghost for sure has gone the Heiser way. And I have, but it's been a long time. Yeah, I mean, more or less, I was pulling your leg. But I again, I agree with what you said. So, although apparently it was sarcasm, I actually kind of think that. I think there is usefulness in these texts, but I'm just not the revelatory guy, where I don't make predictions. I don't try to figure out what's going on. It's just not for me. I just don't. I don't think that's fruitful, but I am very, very, very cynical. And I think most people here disagree with me on that stuff, which is totally fine. But I like it just for context, the cultural context, the historical context, what it adds to the other things that I read, and how all of these things stack one upon another to give me a much better understanding of all of it as a whole. I'm the aggregate the data guy, because I get a much cleaner picture of what's going on. And then, like Ghost said, I do believe it is all fractal. I think it's all the same. It's all the same, but different. I think the Book of Giant exposes the fallen agenda, says Heidi. What is the fallen agenda, Heidi? Ghost said, I go way beyond Heiser, but his work is so foundational. Rest in peace, baby. Yeah, Ghost goes way deeper than Heiser. Ghost goes places we don't have appropriate flashlights to be able to deal with. But we try. 34. And I saw this vision. And I saw in this vision, until that sheep became a man and built a house for the Lord of sheep, and placed all the sheep in that house. And I saw until this sheep, I don't like the way some of this is said, because it makes it seem like it doesn't make any sense. But it's just me. And when I saw until the sheep which had met, that sheep which led them fell asleep or died. And I saw until all the great sheep perished, and little ones arose in their place. And they came to a pasture and approached a stream of water. Then that sheep, their leader, which had become a man, withdrew from them and fell asleep or died. And all the sheep looked for it, sought it, and cried over it with a great crying. With a great crying. Yeah, grammar is non-existent in these translations. That's right, Heidi is French. I am French. The stars that didn't keep their ways, their commands. That's the fallen agenda. Say more. Okay, the sheep cried a great cry, and I saw until they left off crying, for that sheep and... Bro, we might just call it an evening. And I saw until they left off crying for that sheep and crossed that stream of water. And there arose the two sheep as leaders in the place of those which had led them and fallen asleep. And I saw until the sheep came to a good place and a pleasant and glorious island. And I saw until those sheep were satisfied, and that house stood among them in the green, pleasant land. And then there's an author's note. And the author's note says, after Moses died and the 2 spies were sent into the promised land to bring back a report, Joshua took over and led the Israelites into the promised land. Moses and Aaron, go set. Well, I mean, fair guess, I would say, to be fair. And sometimes their eyes were open and sometimes blinded, until another sheep arose and led them and brought them all back, and their eyes were open. And the dogs and the foxes and the wild boars began to devour those sheep until the Lord of the sheep raised up another sheep, a ram, from their midst, which led them. And that ram began to butt on either side those dogs, foxes, and wild boar until he had destroyed them all. There's an author's note which says this is the succession of kings leading up to David. All of them had fought the surrounding nations. Interesting. I could see that one. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. 42. And that sheep whose eyes were open saw that ram, which was among the sheep, until it forsook its glory and began to butt those sheep and trampled on them and behaved itself unseemly. And the Lord of the sheep sent the lamb to another lamb and raised it to being a ram and leader of the sheep instead of that ram which had forsaken its glory. And it went on and spoke to it alone and raised it to being a ram and made it the prince and leader of the sheep. But during all these things, those dogs oppressed the sheep. And the first ram pursued the second ram, and the second ram arose and fled before it. And I saw until those dogs pulled down from the first ram. And that second ram arose and led the little sheep, and those sheep grew and multiplied. But all the dogs and foxes and wild boars feared and fled before it. And that ram butted and killed the wild beasts. And those wild beasts had no longer any power among the sheep and robbed them no more of anything. Goes said, in my opinion, fallen means to ignore God's pattern. Would you equate that to sin? Like the traditional meaning of sin? Like sin coming from the like archery term of missing the mark? And he said they made a blood covenant to go against the great Yahweh, the creator God of the garden. So Heidi also said the stars who didn't keep their appointed times are the fallen ones. Interesting. So the 2 sheep are Moses and Joshua. Yeah, and that last one. Yeah, I am in agreement on the fallen thing, though. That's also where I sit. I see it as the traditional sense of sin. Missing the mark, breaking off the pattern. And that ram fathered many sheep and fell asleep, and a little sheep became a ram in its place, and became prince and leader of those sheep. And that house became great and broad, and it was built for those sheep. And a high and great tower was built on the house for the Lord of the sheep, and that house was low, but the tower was elevated and high. And the Lord of the sheep stood on that tower, and they offered a full table before him. And again, I saw those sheep that they again erred and went many ways, and forsook that their house and their Lord of the sheep called some from among the sheep, and sent them to the sheep. But the sheep began to slay them. And one of them was saved and was not slain. And it sped away and cried aloud over the sheep, and they sought to slay it. But the Lord of the sheep saved it from the sheep, and brought it up to me, and caused it to live there. There's an author's note that says verse 50 could be a reference to Elijah. Interesting. Okay, so I want to read that one again. Could be a reference to Elijah. This one which says, and one of them was saved and was not slain. And it sped away and cried aloud over the sheep. And they sought to slay it, but the Lord of the sheep saved it from the sheep, and brought it up to me, and caused it to live there. I suppose who or what is Elijah a reference to? What do you mean? Like in the canonical text? Or in this? Graves, hey. I mean, I could, I guess, see 50 being a reference to Elisha, but there's not enough. in my opinion. There's not enough. But I mean, I kind of get it. What about Jesus? Oh, bro, don't even start that. Don't even go there. Yeah. It actually has something to do with this whole thing I'm doing right now about Jesus and divinity and the names and the translation issues and stuff like that. Yeah, Elijah is a whole thing. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Big time heresy. Good old Joe on that one. Big time heretical. Graves, it's good to have you. You're late, but you're here. It's good to see you, friend. Heidi said, it's funny that in our time, the sheep are the ones who follow the false light. It became upside down, reversed. Bah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting, I suppose, where we have all these. It's interesting, I guess, on a couple different levels. It was culturally relevant then, the sheep analogy or illustration. But it was also functionally appropriate because we have a God that is meant to be followed and mirrored and mimicked, and then we had Christ who is meant to be followed and mirrored and mimicked, and the sheep was just like a beautiful way to represent that culturally. But it was also functionally appropriate. And then today, it's like it's just the opposite. The function is the same, where a bunch of people are following something, but it's the upside down cross, basically. And I would say even with Christians, where even a lot of Christians today are sheep. Even doing the Christian thing, they're sheep. Like they are blindly, ignorantly following a religion that they don't know anything about. Just like on the other side of that, you have people who are blindly following culture, basically. Culture and Hollywood and whatever, blindly just following along with that. So I think no matter which side you're on, it's just the majority of humans in general are sheep. It's just, what are you a sheep in search of? What are you a sheep following? You could be following something good, but it doesn't make you not a sheep. If you're ignorant and your brain's rattling around in your head while you're blindly following somebody around, it doesn't mean you're doing right. You could, by happenstance be doing right, but it doesn't make you not a brain-rattled sheep. In my humble opinion, of course. 51. Heidi said, in the Roman Catholic Church, they do the sing of the upside-down cross. What do you mean by that? I was in Catholic Church for a long time. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Most Catholic churches don't have upside-down crosses. I can attest to that. And I am not a defender of the Catholic Church. I think the Catholic Church needs to be completely revamped. But I think all of Christianity needs to be revamped. The cross of Peter. Oh, the hand symbol. Okay. What you mean the Father, Son, Holy Spirit thing? Is that what you're talking about, Heidi? Hold on. Because that's not upside down. Is this something I don't remember? That's like a regular cross. Because the head to the chest, to the heart, your shoulders are closer to the head than to the heart, right? The cross of Peter, often called the inverted cross or the cross of St. Peter, is a symbol associated with the Apostle Peter's martyrdom. That's right. Thank you, Ghost. 0% of me remember this. According to Christian tradition, Peter was crucified upside down in Rome, which we definitely remember that. I forgot Catholics made such a big deal of that. That completely slipped me. Yeah, it was Peter's whole thing was like, I'm not worthy enough to be crucified the same way my Lord was. So the Romans were like, no problem, brother. Not an issue. And so they flipped the cross upside down and hung him inverted. Which is not funny, but it's interesting, I guess. It's interesting. If it's true, right? Like if it's historically accurate, what just an absolute savage. What a devout follower of Christ. Like it's one of many great examples of like these people were willing to go through anything because of what they believed, which is just absolutely admirable, but brutal, and in a super sick way. Kind of ironic, I suppose, how it went down. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I didn't even think about that. Do your worst dialed up to 11. Yeah, that's exactly it. I just like, dude, don't play with the Romans like that. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I greatly respect the principle that if it's true, that he was trying to act upon. But it's just like the Romans, no problem. We got something in store for you, little brother. And just flip that bad boy right upside down. Chapter 51. I think probably a couple weeks and we'll be done with this. Probably 2 weeks, depending on conversation. Which is exciting because there's a bunch of other stuff I want to start reading. A bunch of apocryphal stuff that I want to start reading. Heidi said the true way, I assume, is orthodoxy, is the feet to the head, right to left. Do Orthodox touch their toes and then go to the head, then the right to the left? Romans are upside down. Yes. Well, Romans would crucify people upside down. Unless you mean like their thinking is upside down, then I guess. David. David says, speaking of sheep, the like alarm just bleated. Please subscribe and like wool, please. David, you're the man. You are the man, sir. 51. And the many other sheep he sent to those sheep to testify to them and lament over them. The grammar is just absolutely atrocious. And after that, I saw that when they forsook the house of the Lord and his tower, they fell away entirely, and their eyes were blinded. And I saw the Lord of the sheep and how he worked much slaughter among them in their herds until those sheep invited that slaughter and betrayed his place. And he gave them over into the hands of the lions and tigers and wolves and hyenas and into the hand of the foxes and to all the wild beasts. And those wild beasts began to tear in pieces those sheep. And I saw that he forsook their house and their tower and gave them all into the hand of the lions to tear and devour them into the hand of all the wild beasts. And I began to cry aloud with all my power and to appeal to the Lord of the sheep, because the sheep were being devoured by all the wild beasts. But he remained unmoved, though he saw it, and rejoiced that they were devoured, and swallowed and robbed, and left them to be devoured in the hand of all the beasts. And he called 70 shepherds, and gave those sheep to them, that they might pasture them. And he spoke to the shepherds and their companions, and said, let each individual of you pasture the sheep from now on, and everything that I shall command you, that do you. I'm going to have a mental breakdown. Let each individual of you pasture the sheep from now on, and everything that I shall command you, that do you. That do you. That be what you do, I suppose is what he's saying. Author's note says the 70 are religious leaders of that time frame. In the third book of Enoch, God mentions 70 nations, leading one to believe that from God's viewpoint, there are only 70 true nations. All other divisions are man-made and false. Dang. Go said, I don't think God cares too much about hand gestures that are signed in good intentions. I agree. It seems superstitious to me. Heidi said, Greek Orthodoxy have the oldest way of complete scriptures. Then the Romans twisted and removed many books and added lots of other things. I would argue that was kind of done earlier than that. Heidi said in reference to the hand gestures, true, but the action of what the Romans did to twist stuff shows their agenda. I mean, true, but if you have a bunch of ignorant people who are only doing it with good intentions, it kind of loses its, if they're not doing it as I look at it like this, and this is how I've explained it in the past. If I hold up my middle finger to you guys right now, I being an adult who knows what that means, and I'm doing it with an intention, you all would be offended. Or you should be, I guess. If a newborn infant holds up their middle finger at you, they don't know what they're doing. They're not doing it intentionally. They have no ill will against you. So you don't get offended. Nobody is looking at a baby who's holding up a middle finger to them and being like, oh, I can't believe that baby, bro. That baby's so rude. It's got no power. There's no intention because none of it actually means anything. It just means what we've decided it means. That's my opinion. Go said the Orthodox Bible has the same number of books as the Catholic Bible. They split for a few reasons. The major reason being the Philok debate. Hanlon's razor. Yeah, man. It's been a while. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to it. But yeah, essentially, that's a fair synopsis. I just think it was already ruined, in my opinion, as the village cynic. Before the Orthodox and the Catholic split, I think they were all, for a very long time, already functioning on complete garbage. Not complete garbage. That's not fair. That's dramatic. They were already functioning on something that was inaccurate, that was incomplete, that had redactions and additions. I just think at that point, all was already lost for so many different reasons. I think all was already lost. But that's me. That's just me. Chapter 58. And then I got to go. So how long is 59? All right, we're going to read 58 and 59 so we can end on an even 60. 58. And I will deliver them over to you, duly numbered, and tell you which of them are to be destroyed, and them you will destroy. And he gave over to them those sheep. And he called another and spoke to him and said, observe and mark everything that the shepherds will do to those sheep, for they will destroy more of them than I have commanded them. And that is all. Are you kidding? Cookies will be in the oven by the time you're done? What a beautiful day. What a great day. What a fabulous day. Go said, we will be graded on how well we understood and preserved the message these past 2,000 years. I don't think it will be very good. No, I am terrified for this test. I am absolutely terrified. But I feel that I have tried very, very, very hard to try to figure out what's actually going on and to find the things that were ignored in sheepness. So I hope that the teacher's assistant is like, you tried. I know you tried. I can see it. So you suffer less. I'll take some suffering. Heidi said, the cross for me is evil. I don't have this thing in my house. Well, I mean, that's totally your call, I'm not a huge fan of the crucifix thing. Just kind of on principle. I just think it's kind of odd. But then again, I also kind of get it. So I'm kind of ambivalent about the whole crucifix thing. On one hand, it's like, why do I want to be reminded of that part over and over and over again as like a decoration? But the other side of that is like, well, it is kind of also really important that you remember that. It just feels weird having it as a decoration. I used to be a crucifix necklace wearer. I used to always wear a chain. I guess that's not true. Cross. It wasn't a crucifix, but I've definitely had them before. But I used to wear a cross all the time. Not kidding you, darling. I wouldn't mess around with cookies. I love you. Go said, if it wasn't a cross, it would have been another torture device. We can't have a resurrection without the cross. Right. Right. Which is why I think it's good. I don't know. We don't have them. We have like some crosses here and there, but like nothing dramatic. And I don't think we own a crucifix at all. I just don't think like I don't know. But let's see. So reminder again, because I'm going to forget, and it's gonna come Monday night, and I'm gonna be like, oh crap. This Saturday, 80% sure I'm gonna have to cancel. We have Kat's mom's coming into town for a very short period of time, like very short. So I need to get as much time with them as possible. So probably off for Saturday, which I'm very disappointed about because the Gospel of Judas is super interesting. But family needs to come first, obviously. Sunday should be no problem. Book of Job. We're getting closer to the end, which I'm kind of ready for it. I'm kind of ready for the end, if I'm being honest. So Sunday, Book of Job, and then Monday is our little topic discussion. Kat, please remind me to post a poll when we get off. We will post the poll tonight. And I will take some of the stuff from the last several weeks that got votes but didn't win. And we will see what happens. Saturday is the Gospel of the Mother-in-Law. Yes, that is exactly right. Yeah, we do not see our family often at all. So when they come, I definitely want to give the time to them. But I will miss y'all. Very excited about Judas. And then Book of Giants, like I said earlier, we are quickly encroaching on the end. So we'll do a poll for what next to read. Some things have been thrown out over the past month, so I'll put those in the poll. But I think that's about it, y'all. Me too. I had crosses, Heidi said, but now I know the history of the Romans before Christ. So, cheers. Just having a beer with you guys. It was good to have you, Heidi. David is doing this just to be a jerk. GMIL. I already forgot what the first one meant. What was it? I can't scroll fast enough. I give up. David, what does that mean? Good morning, Illinois. He was abbreviating what I said. Good Gospel of the Mother-in-Law. I've got 13 cats in my house. Girl, I thought my house was a zoo. We have, I think, 15 animals total. 13 cats is so many cats. I kick on accident and like trip over our cats all the time at 4. 4 of them. If we had 13, I just don't feel like that'd go well. I do not feel like it would go well. All right. Well, this was fun. 2 mama cats got 2 litters back to back. Dang. That's wild. This abbreviating things to make Joe look stupid, this needs to end. This ends tonight and never comes back. I love you all very much. Have a good night. Love you guys. Bye.